and thank you for joining us. My name is Lawrence Lane, and today I'm spending some time with Alistair Donkin. Alistair, good afternoon, and thank you for agreeing to talk to me.
Thank you, lovely to meet you.
So, you joined the D'Oyly Carte in the August of 1979 as a chorus member and as understudy to James Conroy-Ward in the comic baritone roles, and stayed with them until 1982 when, unfortunately, the company closed. However, going back to the beginning, what led you to the D'Oyly Carte? Had you studied music earlier, or were you a keen amateur with a Gilbert and Sullivan background?
I blame our local vicar.
Right.
When I was 10, he gave me a recording of excerpts from Iolanathy and the Mikado, and I was hooked. Following that, when I was about 14, I was at school in Shrewsbury, and with the connivance of the senior mistress, who was a mad keen GNS fan, I truanted from school to see the D'Oyly Carte perform at the Granada in Shrewsbury with the Dream Team. Donald Adams, Christine Palmer, Philip Potter, Valerie Masterson,
yes.
Ken Sanford, John Reed, Tom Lawler, old Uncle Tom Cobley and all. And it appeared, because I'd got a seat dead centre in the dress circle on the front row, as if they were performing it just for me. And that was in the days, some of your listeners might remember, when in the finale Act 2, they would actually come back on stage, some of the men, carrying lit lanterns, which was binned by the time I joined the company.
Right.
So I got hooked. I started doing amateur shows all around the area, because in North Shropshire, if you're male and have a reasonable voice, you can get a lead in practically anything. Because I started as a stagehand,
right,
which I always respect the stage crew immensely for what they do. I always argue that if the person who's opening the curtain doesn't, then we can't do anything.
A very important job, isn't it?
Yeah, so shows dotted all round over the place, things like Curly in Oklahoma, romantic leads, and I think, yeah, right, some GNS. And it built up to a point, and I hate to admit this because it's something I detest performers doing now. I was in 3 different shows, doing a principal role in each one, in 3 different towns around Market Drayton, with a 1-week gap between each.
Oh, goodness.
It was great fun at the time, but I now think the arrogance of thinking everybody else would work around me. And I now, if I'm directing and anybody says, oh, I want to be in another show, not in my shows, you don't.
No.
You have to respect all your colleagues. So I was doing all this because at the time I'd qualified as a solicitor,
right,
and was working for Shropshire County Council, presenting, of all things, child abuse cases. And you can imagine they're not good.
No.
And I was doing more and more shows as an antidote. I won't go into what parents can do to their children because it's not pleasant, but I needed an out.
Right.
And doing all these shows was it, including doing a production of The Yeoman of the Guard at the Lyceum Theatre in Crewe in 1977 to mark the Queen's Silver Jubilee.
Right.
And I thought then, either the day job has to go or the hobby has to go.
Right.
So I'd met Trish Leonard and Mike Buchan while my society in Market Drayton were presenting Bless the Bride. I needed help to become a bit more of a tenor than I was. And the common link was that Pat and Mike's pianist, Mary Farmer, was the accompanist for the Market Drayton Opera Society. So Pat and Mike were drafted in to help wind my voice up. They were fairly successful, but it didn't last, because I'm no tenor. And then when I thought I might just try this, I contacted Pat, and she told me who to contact in D'Oyly Carte to get an audition. So I did, and I auditioned at Sadler's Wells Theatre in London in the December of 1978. The usual cattle market, dozens of people, no vacancies, goodbye, go home. So I went back to being a lawyer. I was going to say soliciting, but that might not go down so well. And then in the March, I was called back to the Opera House in Manchester, where they were on tour. I thought this could be interesting. And Ken Robertson, who I know you've already interviewed, was the stage manager. And I went on to re-audition. And I was called down into the stalls and met all sorts of people from the cart. Freddie Lloyd, Peter Riley, the company manager. And they said, well, we'd like to offer you a chorus role and second understudy to John Reed. And I thought, yay!
Oh, yes.
Ken tells the story. It took him nearly half an hour to get my name, address and phone number out of me. I was so excited, I couldn't believe it. Came home, told my parents, my mother went ballistic that I was throwing up a lawyer's career to go on the stage. My father just looked and said, he knows what he's doing. So I thought that'd be great. except the cart promptly left for Australia without me, and I had to go back to soliciting again for another 4 months. In the middle of the time they were away, I'd been out on a site meeting somewhere for something, and I got back to my office at the Shire Hall. There was a note on my desk saying, "Ring D'Oyly Carte urgently," with a number. I thought, OK, this was in the handwriting of the local office clown. I thought they're winding me up. And he says, no, they rang. They're insistent you have to ring today. So I rang up, and I spoke to Albert Truelove, who was the secretary. And he said, "Oh, you have to come down to London to audition. Don't tell anybody, but John Reed's announced his retirement. They promoted James Conroy-Ward, and the Dame wants to hear you." Oh. So I went down to the Savoy, and I'm standing on the stage at the Savoy with Dame Bridget auditioning me, with Freddie Lloyd and Peter Riley and Albert out there, and I'm thinking, you're standing in the temple to Gilbert and Sullivan in front of the High Priestess. I was panic-stricken.
I can imagine, yes.
So I'm doing bits and pieces, and they said I'd do a dialogue scene. So I did the dialogue with Coco and Katisha that leads into Titwillow. And Albert, bless him, came up on stage and was reading in Katisha, and I'm on my knees. And Albert comes out with the immortal line, "It takes years to train a man to love me." And I thought, yes, it probably does, Albert. And then went in to sing Titwillow to him. But I was then summoned down, and the Dame said, "Yes, we'd like to offer you the direct cover to James Conroy-Ward." Wow. And Freddie Lloyd shining there, "When can you start? It's urgent." And the Dame said, "Lloyd, give the boy time. He will tell you when he can start." And so I got promoted before I joined, which isn't bad.
Really good.
Well, they then came back from Australia, and on the 20th of August 1979, I and 7 other newbies met at the Church of the Holy Redeemer in Exmouth Market, just next to the Mount Pleasant sorting office. And there was Pam Baxter, Michelle Shipley, Vicky Duncan, Janet Henderson, who's known by Janet Crow now because her husband Bob was in the chorus, the lovely Bruce Graham, Clive Birch, Mick Lessiter, and me. The novelty here is that Clive Birch became the second cover to James, me being the first.
Right.
Clive lives in Market Drayton and was the accompanist to the Operatic Society when I was performing with them.
Small world.
He'd gone the proper way and went through, I think it was Guildhall, and was a gold medalist. I turned up as an amateur. And then in the back room we had 3 new principals, Yvette Davis, Clive Harray and Harry Sharples. So Jimmy Marsland, bless him, was taking the 8 of us choristers through our paces with the 3 principals in the back room with, I think it was Leonard Osborne.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Wow. And I've actually arranged to see Michelle Shipley in a few weeks' time.
Oh, lovely.
So,
I've not heard of her for years. But because she and Vicky were short of stature, they were the 2 little girls when the sorcerers brought back in.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. One funny thing from the Church of the Holy Redeemer, we all thought it was a Catholic church. It's not. It's very high Anglican. And the wall of the rehearsal room is the other side is the church. And we were belting out with joyous shout one day, and the verger came in and said, "I'm sorry, could you take a break and go to the Wimpy for coffee? We're having a funeral and this is not going down well in the church."
So when someone is given the role of an understudy, they're usually given some of the bit parts within the other operas. I was trying to do some research before I came to find out exactly what you were doing, but from what we were speaking about before we started the interview, it does look as though, needless to say, the good old internet has let us down. So rather than me say, well, in this month you took over this role, would you like to just go through the roles that you took and which ones you were understudying and which ones you had in your own right?
Well, on day 1, I was understudy to all the patter roles that were in the rep at the time. They didn't include Ida or Patience, or the Sorcerer, but all the others I had direct understudies to. And I also was given Annie Barley in Act 2 of Gondoliers and the second citizen in Yeoman.
Right.
And Clive Birch was the first citizen. The logic being, we were in effectively medieval day clothes. So if Jack Point happened to keel over, we could step forward immediately without a costume change, whereas if we'd been cast as yeomen in the chorus, that would have been extraordinarily complicated to get over there. We had to put the curtain in and do costume changes. So there's always a logic in these things.
Yes. Robin O'Capple,
Oh yes, they brought that Rodrigo in the last season, and everybody assumed that because James had been so ill, poor man, that they would give me the role of Robin O'Capple. No, they gave it to Peter Lyon, who was the sub-principal baritones, things like Strephon and the captain. And I had a letter from Freddie Lloyd explaining why, on the lines of, because of James's ill health, you're going to be busy enough in the London season without learning a whole new role. Which was extremely good of them, and I was surprised at the time they took the trouble to tell me properly, because I would just taken it. Well, they were giving it to somebody else. You know, I was never one of those. It has to be mine, you know, automatically, because I'm just not like that. So, some of the members of the company may think I was a bit up my own backside. Because, I mean, there were times I was, well, I'll come round to how often I was on later when you just ask about James, but it was getting tricky backstage, shall we say, on occasion.
Yes. So when you joined, did you find it easy to learn all of the operas in a relatively short period of time, and in addition having to learn all the principal roles as well in case you were required to cover at short notice?
Well, the lucky thing was I'd done so many of them as an amateur around Shropshire, Staffordshire, Cheshire and North Wales. Yes. And again, a lot of the directors then were the tail end of the using the licensed copies that the D'Oyly Carte sent out. Most of the business I did was the D'Oyly Carte business. They had to tidy up. I mean, I'd never been in the chorus of Pinafore, so Jimmy Marston, bless him, encyclopedic knowledge of every chorus move ever. He knocked us into shape. Because the complication there is, there was only the 8 of us rehearsing. So take Pinafore, for example. You have the D'Oyly Carte semicircle, as it were, with the men on the back and the women on the front. But we weren't partnering one another, because we were in the spaces that were being vacated by choristers who were leaving. Yes. So trying to do the inevitable 2 doilies and the cart, as it's called in Pinafore, in mid-air was quite a tricky situation. I mean, bless him, Jimmy did teach it us originally with pairings all up, and they say, no, but now you have to do it where you will be. He also, I think, realised that James wasn't well. So a lot of the time, because people like Bruce and Pam Baxter, who we all affectionately knew as Mavis, had done the shows as amateurs, if there was a scene before something we were going to do as choristers, or scene after, he would ask us to just go through the scene for the sake of the others. And now I realise he was actually very clever. He was actually getting us trained in, particularly me, ahead of the fray.
Right.
You know, I mean, without him, I think the company would have had a problem. I know a lot of people think him, bless him, long rest his soul, that he was a fussy little man. But no, he knew everything. I can tell you one naughty one, but I mean, I shall swear, but I'm sure your listeners will accept this one. One day we were on tour in Blackpool. He was walking on the prom with Meston Reid, who was playing Marco in the Gondoliers. And the gavotte in the second act, there is a vocal shorthand to it, which all the companies I've directed now know: in, out, down point, in, out, down point, front side, down point. And Meston was being instructed by Jimmy, and there was a drunk wandering along next to them trying to interrupt, and it's alleged that Jimmy, without breaking his sentence, said, in, out, down point, in, out, down point, front side, fuck off, down point. I'm not sure if that's going to make the cut.
I'm sure it will. We will put a warning on the screen. And the people that I've spoken to all speak very highly of Jimmy. So
he was an absolute sweetheart.
Did you get much support from the other principals when they knew that you were sort of booked to go on that night?
Well, most of the time we only found out as I was arriving at the stage door.
Right.
Where can I go with this? I've got to go back to South Sea, which is the first week we played. The first time any of us new choristers saw the set was at the half in our costumes. We sort of realised we're now expected to actually go up and down steps wearing floor-length Japanese robes, which is tricky. But we did it. Jimmy helped us through. So the whole of that week, we had a premiere every night, effectively.
Yes.
So D'Oyly Carte was very clever in the way they planned their tours. They were all very close theatres. Not. So the week after Southsea, we played Sunderland. and we had to travel between the two on our, quote, day off. So we get to Sunderland, and they'd already been teaching me the Major General's role, and I was billed to go on for the Major General on the Friday night in Sunderland to give James a night off, because he hadn't had a night off the first week. So we're rehearsing odds and sods during the week, and on the Thursday we're in the leisure centre in Sunderland opposite the theatre, rehearsing the chorus work for the Gondoliers, where I'm Annie Barley. And after about half an hour, Freddie Lloyd-Jones comes and says, Alistair, come with me, you're on tonight. I said, no, Mr. Lloyd, I'm on tomorrow night. No, you're on tonight. I said, what are we doing? Mikado. You've not taught me the Mikado. He says, no, but Jimmy's going to teach you now. So I'm taken out. They're all thinking, what's going on? So Jimmy took me through the entire thing. I say, I knew a lot of the moves from being an amateur. And I went on, and that night you could feel the entire company close ranks round me and carry me through the performance. At one point, Ken Sanford literally carried me, because we were on stage and he stood there as usual with his hands clasping this large fan, and I was clearly in totally the wrong place. So Ken wandered across, hooked his elbow under my elbow, moved me across the stage and dumped me where I needed to be. The audience would have had no idea. No. So that was a 3-session day. So Jimmy in the morning, Jimmy in the afternoon, show at night. The next day, we had another dialogue rehearsal for Mikado, and then I went on as the Major General that night, because James was going to be off, but he was off sick anyway. The Saturday, he's still off, so another Mikado. At which point, the company go, well, you've done it once, you're on your own. And off I went. Then we got to Blackpool, and I think there was another Major General there for him. And of course, Blackpool, the Opera House, it wasn't the Opera House, sorry, it was the Winter Gardens, which is vast. In fact, it's so big, they had to close in the blacks on the side of the stage, and the D'Oyly Carte set was set up like a marionette theatre, and it's huge, and we have no sound system. And we were just belting this out. Then we go to Nottingham for 2 weeks. And Nottingham is so close to Market Drayton, I was commuting on a daily basis. So we're going across there, and on the Thursday of the first week, we have a chorus rehearsal of Pinafore, in the middle of which Freddie comes in again and says, oh no, it's Peter Riley this time because he was on tour. He said, you're on tonight, Alistair. What are you doing? Mikado. Oh yes, okay. But come, we've got to take you out. We're building up to Gondoliers on Saturday, and Jimmy's going to take you through the Gondoliers, the Duke of Platatoria. So I've done Pinafore in the morning, Gondoliers in the afternoon, Mikado at night. Friday morning, we get back to the rehearsal room. This is now a full company run of Pinafore, which I've not been taught properly as the principal. And James is still off sick. So I'm now playing Sir Joseph, being manhandled around the room by Jimmy and the rest of the principals. I spend the afternoon with Jimmy on the Gondoliers again and play another Mikado. On the Saturday morning, I go in and we do a dress rehearsal for the Gondoliers with all the principals on stage, in reverse order to save the crew changing the set twice. And on the afternoon matinee, the gondola is pushed on. I'm at the front as the Duke. I have no idea what I'm doing. Behind me is the Duchess. It's Trish Leonard's night off, or the afternoon off, so Jill Pert is on. Jill knows exactly what she's doing because she's been taught it. But she's never been on before, because it's only been in the rep for 2 performances. Yvette Davis as Casilda and Harry Sharples as Louis have played it twice. So the 4 of us are pushed on with everybody crossing their fingers. Downstage in the wings, I can see Jimmy Marsland as he's working me like a marionette with hand gestures. Go there, sit down, stand up, drink the wine. And I go through the whole thing. We get to the end, God knows how, and do the same thing at night. I come home to Market Drayton for a day off on the Sunday. On the Monday, I'm driving back to Nottingham, and I develop pharyngitis. I can speak, but I can't sing, and it's Gondoliers again. So we now get the Rex Harrison version of the Duke of Platatorio. And that night I go off sick myself. Right. And I'm at home sick on the Tuesday. I hear from Peter Riley, we've called in John Reid out of retirement because James is still off and you're off. So he does Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. On the Friday morning, I ring up Peter and say, look, I'm fit. I'm come back in. He says, yes, but don't go on stage. We'll get you a front row seat in the stalls and you watch John Reid as a masterclass. And it's Understudy that night. So I'm sitting down there, and they start the announcement. Unfortunately, James Conroy-Ward is sick, and there's a groan. And they comment that Alistair Donkin is also grown, and they do a huge spiel about scouring the country to find somebody to play the Lord Chancellor. And they say the role of the Lord Chancellor of the scene will be played by John Reed, and there's a eruption of cheering. And the guy next to me on the front row says, "Oh, that's a shame. I saw Alistair Donkin play Coco on Friday. He was rather good."
Oh.
I thought, okay, right. So it goes on, and they're doing Island Theatre. I go backstage in the intermission. This shows where rumours can start. I go backstage and I am met with a wall of ice. And I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? And nobody will speak to me. Strange. Go back and watch the second half. And Peter says, "Oh, stay in the audience for the next day." So I did. And I go backstage. And John Aildon came to me, bless him, and I will never, ever thank him enough for doing this. He said, "The rumour is, vile rumour if I may use Garmer's lines, you refused to go on in the chorus on Friday because that should have been your first Lord Chancellor. Is that true?" And I said, "Of course it's not true. Peter Riley, the company manager, told me Johnny's on, you watch him as a masterclass." And he said, "Oh, good, because somebody's put the rumour around that you'd refused." And I think, where do these things start?
And they
so
travel so quickly.
As well as the support, like any family, they can fight. And I thought, okay. But, John saved me that day, because otherwise it would have gone on for days around the tour.
Yes.
You think, who on earth started that? Somebody would have said something to somebody, and the whispers
just
start.
as a joke.
Yeah.
That then went the wrong way.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah. But these things happen. But so it went on. I mean, I think somebody said to me once, when did you ever know when you were going to go on? Quite often, I wouldn't get a phone call if we were on tour. I'd go towards the theatre, particularly, I remember the one in Alhambra in Bradford. I'm walking up the hill to the stage door, and Betty Lloyd-Jones is hanging out the dressing room shouting, "You're on again!" "Yes, Betty, what are we doing?" "Ricardo, you know this one." Bless her.
So you've talked about the fact that you get these dreaded messages as you approach the theatre. We often talk to people about their favourite roles. Do you have a particular role that you dreaded getting that announcement that tonight, Alistair, you're going to play so-and-so?
Yeah, Jack Boyd.
Right.
On a tour of Scotland. Now, let me explain this one because it's quite involved. We were touring, this is from September onwards in 1980. It was Sunderland, Aberdeen, Inverness, Stirling, Edinburgh and Glasgow and Leeds. And James played 3 days in Sunderland and was taken sick. So I was playing everything else, to the point that as the programmes were produced probably the week before we hit a theatre, they were printing my name as the principal.
Right.
And to give me a night off, every Pirates, Clyde Birch, the second understudy, I think I told you, also from Market Drayton, would play the Major General. So we're going round, and eventually, because we only play yeoman when we're in a city for 2 or more weeks, it eventually got to the point that I would have to do a yeoman. I'd not done one up till then.
Right.
And I was panic-stricken. I didn't eat for about 36 or 48 hours.
Oh, dear.
Because it's terrifying. A lot of people say, which is your favourite? It is my favourite as well, because it's a real character with real emotions. And I played it, and I was panic-stricken. And I still think it's the best performance I've ever given of it. We played it the second night, and I think I was rubbish. Because I'd done that, know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
No, never do that.
Second nights are often worse than first
Yeah.
nights, aren't they?
Yeah.
You get complacent.
Yes, yeah. We played Yeoman, funnily enough, in another city where the sound system failed to the dressing rooms. And I was in the wings waiting for the Here's a Man of Jollity scene with Roberta and a couple of other choristers. And we were on our own. And the music happened, and we 4 ran on doing this build of Here's a Man of Jollity, 4 of us. And eventually word got through to the dressing rooms. And because the access to the stage was near the yeoman's entrance to the tower, all the cast, citizens, God knows what, came pouring out of the tower like a hose of lemmings onto the stage. I'm told it looked spectacular from the audience. But, oh no.
Possibly moving on to a strange topic now, and something I hadn't really thought about until I saw something that you posted on Facebook a little while ago. Laundry.
Oh.
You were touring for 48 weeks a year. The costumes looked quite heavy. What was the cleaning regime like?
I don't know about the heavy brocaded parts of the costumes, like the yeoman costumes, but all the washable bits, like tights and shirts and things and blouses, were laundered after their fourth performance. And that was the strict rule. So if you were doing something regularly, like Pinafore or Pirates, quite quick. If it was yeoman that was only in the rep every place that played 2 weeks, you could have a 2-week stay and then 3 1-week stays. So that's one use. When you get to the next week you do yeoman, that's 5 weeks from the first one. And it's still not been cleaned. And it could be another 5 weeks and another and another. And it was getting a bit ripe. I believe, Ken Robertson could confirm this one, there was actually action taken by the unions to prevent it.
Right.
Because it was a tad ripe, especially when it was tights. Oh,
and summertime.
Yes, and a line about tights. The yeoman, as I recall, I don't know this for sure because I was a citizen, I actually had tights, not stockings. I'm told the yeoman all bought suspender belts. And I would love to have seen a photograph of all the yeomans with their tops on and suspender belts and stockings. Yeah. Again, the audiences could be very personal about things. They didn't mind me being on for the patter role because I wasn't replacing John Reed. I was replacing James. Whereas Brucey was replacing Ken Sanford. And you could get direct animosity from the audience because you weren't the star they came to see.
Yes.
When John Reed came back to guest for the company in the last season, I talked to him about this. And in fact, I've even talked to Gillian Knight about it. They had the same problem. When John took over from Peter Pratt, he was often booed on his entrance because he wasn't Peter Pratt. Gillian had the same issue because she wasn't Anne Drummond Grant. Not helped by the fact that Drummy's husband, Isidore Godfrey, was conducting from the pit. So it was very personal. I didn't have it because I didn't have this direct contact with John. Right. I was one removed from the "you're not replacing John, we hate you."
It must have been a really difficult situation to go on, if you know that situation exists.
Yes. Fortunately, within moments of being on, I said for Gondoliers, Brucey had the meeting out of his hand. He's just got that ability. He just exudes confidence and charisma, bless him.
Yes. Did you enjoy touring? I assume that when you joined, the reliance on theatrical digs was becoming a thing of the past. Did you tour with a caravan like a number of other members did?
Oh, no.
No?
No. I like my home comforts.
Oh.
I go boating on the canals now, which is the same as a caravan, but not then. No, I like digs and home comforts.
Yes.
And the list of digs would be posted about 2 weeks before you hit somewhere, and you would go in and see what there is and find some. Found some lovely ones. Found some. I remember going into one. We were sharing 2 different sets of rooms with Jill Pert. We ended up, as soon as we arrived, washing the entire contents of the kitchen cupboards. It was so grubby.
Yes.
But then others, you actually go into people's homes. You have to be careful. You didn't end up staying with what we would describe as a mad fan. Because you get in from the theatre and they want to talk until 4 in the morning.
Yes.
And we were just too knackered from doing the show. So you chose them carefully. I mean, some of them, in for a long time, like Betty and the others, they knew all their own digs and they go back year on year on year. But I was very lucky, the ones I had.
Oh, good. By the late 70s and early 80s, touring became so expensive and the company just couldn't afford to keep going. I had the privilege of being in the audience for that last night in February 1982. Obviously, it was far worse for you than me because you needed to find work. What did you do after the closure?
Ooh, can we deal with the build-up to the closure first?
Please do, yes.
Because we knew it was coming. We did a last night 18 months before we closed, and it was already clear there was going to be a problem. And as all the last nights were, they were a potpourri that had been restaged by Alan Spencer, the choreographer, and other people. And the second half was the Mikado in the style of Oklahoma. So we were all in all sorts of things. I mean, the men's chorus were in Indian costumes. So we got a feather bonnet and a leather waistcoat, leather chaps, and a loincloth. Be very careful when you sat down cross-legged with those. For I Have a Song to Sing that they put in for some reason into that tour of Mikado. James and who was it? It'd be Bob and Lily. Were sitting on rocking chairs at the back of the stage as if they were on a horse-drawn carriage to a that Paul Seeley had written. I got a song to sing, oh, and all sorts of rubbish like that. But at the end of it, we'd done a hoedown for I Am the Captain of the Pinafore, right, but doing the gestures from the OKLAHOMA thing. So curtain came in, we all cleared the stage, and it left Ken Sandford as the Yul Brynner character out of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, dressed there, facing the audience, and he pulled a sheaf of papers out of his back pocket and picked it up to read it, and on the back he could see Arts Council report. And he just looked at it, folded it up, turned and walked toward the back of the stage, and the stage crew had on wires the words "The End" coming up like the back of a movie. And the silence from the audience was incredible, because they realised then that's it. And then, of course, after that we knew it was going to happen. We actually found out by accident from what's her name, the Thinking Man's Crumpet, Joan Bakewell. She'd come in with a crew to rehearsal rooms in the Old Vic in that season building up to the Mikado, to watch the restaging of the Mikado and interviewing different people. And we went home from the Adelphi one night, and on Panorama or something, she announced that tomorrow the members of the D'Oyly Carte Opera Company would tell the company is closing. And we hadn't been. And under the interview, she was playing the recording they made in the rehearsal studio. To sit in solemn silence in the dull, dark dock, awaiting the sensation of a short, sharp shock from a cheapy, chippy chopper on a big black block. The next morning, we were rehearsing on the stage at the Adelphi, and Freddie Lloyd came in through the stalls, and I swear, if there hadn't been an orchestra pit between them, John Aildon would have strangled him. He was so angry, because we'd been let down.
Yes. And
then after that, we started trying to raise funds. So we agreed that one or other of us would go before the curtain every night after the show and appeal for funding. And it's very lonely when you've played the Major General and there's all the applause and you step forward and the house curtain comes down behind you. There's just you in the audience and you're saying, "Please, sir, can we have some money?" But we've got quite a lot of money. The one night I refused to do it was the night after the Penley lifeboat disaster. And I said to Peter Riley, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. We've got to do the appeal for the Penley lifeboat." They had the buckets overflowing with money from the audience. It was incredible. But we went on doing it. And then, of course, you get the stories after of why the Arts Council didn't give the D'Oyly Carte a grant, and the way the press twisted the report. The report said any company that performs 8 operas in repertoire 48 weeks of the year throughout the United Kingdom, America and Australia will occasionally put in a performance which is tired, bored and wooden. And the press just said the D'Oyly Carte are tired, bored and wooden. Missed the point completely. But also I've discovered later, and others may correct me on this, that in fact the Arts Council did not deny the funding to the D'Oyly Carte. It came with strings.
That was what I'd heard.
Yes, which the then trustees, and this is no reaction to the current ones, so I know very well, like David Walton, the chairman, wouldn't accept the strings. So the company, we weren't told that at the time. We've only found out years later. And it's frustrating.
Yes.
But there is part of me, and I did an article that went in one of the magazines where I was pilloried, saying it was time the D'Oyly Carte closed, because it needed refreshing. And one of the things the Arts Council wanted was each of the operas in turn to have a new production year by year by year, which is not unreasonable.
Yeah.
And that a member of the Arts Council sat on the Board of Trustees. And it would have worked. We could have carried on for a long time. But, you know, if they had, I wouldn't have had the career I've had outside. And more to the point, I would not have met my husband.
No.
So, every cloud.
Yeah. And now, from that recording of the last night of the D'Oyly Carte, made in 1982, here is Alistair singing the Major General song from the Pirates of Penzance.
I am the very model of a modern major general. I've information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England and acquit the fights historical, from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. I'm very well acquainted too with matters mathematical. I understand equation, both the simple and quadratical. About binomial theorem, I'm teeming with a lot of news. Oh, lots of news, lots of news. With many cheerful facts from square the hypotenuse. I'm very good at integral and differential calculus. I know the scientific names of beings and immaculate. In short, he meant as vegetable, animal, and mineral. I am the very model of a modern major general. I know a mythic history, King Arthur's and Sir Caradox. I answer hard acrostics, I have a pretty taste for paradox. I quote in elegiacs all the crimes of Heliogabalus. In conics I can floor peculiarities, parabolas. I can tell undoubted Raphaels from Jaradausen Sophonies. I know the croaking gourds and the frogs of Aristophanes. Then I can have a fugue which I've heard the music's dinner for. Oh dear, 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 dinner for. And whistle all the airs that you fern monsters pinafore. Then I can write a washing bill in Babylonic cuneiform and tell you every detail of correct against uniform. In short, it matters vegetable, animal, and mineral. I am the very model of a modern major general. In fact, when I know what is meant by mamelon and revelin, when I can tell at sight a Mauser rifle from a javelin, when such affairs as sorties and surprises I'm more wary at, and when I know precisely what is meant by commissariat, when I have learned what progress has been made in modern gunnery, when I know more of tactics than a novice in a nunnery, in short, when I've a smattering of elemental strategy, you'll... Oh dear, strategy. Let me see, strategy. I have it. You'll say a better major general has never strategy. For my military knowledge, I'm plugging in inventory. It's only people down to the beginning of the surgery. We're still a massive vegetable, animal, and mineral. I'm the very model of a major general.
It was a shame that more of the operas weren't actually physically recorded on video. You know,
Well, of course, in the season before last, we were told in Cambridge, where we were playing in the July, in what's jokingly described as the Sadler's Wells Theatrorama, aka tent, in a heatwave, that Brent Walker were going to video all the operas, which they did, and they were going to use the D'Oyly Carte and the occasional stars, like they were thinking of doing the Mikado with the two Ronnies as Coco and Pooh Bah, which would have been brilliant, our production with the stars in. The more the discussions went on, the less we were involved, to the point it was only the name and the music and the words.
Yes.
And that was it. But, you know, c'est la vie.
Yeah, it was a shame that the Patience from the 60s was lost. That would have been nice to have been kept. And we've got the Mikado from 66.
Yes,
and
there's the Pinafore one.
And the Pinafore, yes.
Which is horribly stilted because there was no audience.
No.
It was done in a studio at Pebble Mill. And then an audience was brought in to watch some of it to get a bit of reaction. But it was all done on a flat floor. There was no theatre involved.
No.
I mean, even John, bless him, he's going through the motions of the encores to Never Mind the Why and Wherefore, but even he is fighting a losing battle. Hate to say it about him, because I worship that man.
Yes. So, going back to where we started, after the closure, what did you get up to?
I was very lucky, actually. Toward the end of the last season, I went to my pigeonhole at a stage door, and there were two notes. One from the Norman Meadmore organisation,
right,
asking if I'd join them to play Coco and the Major General in cut-down versions of Mikado and Pirates on the QE2 between Hong Kong and Hawaii.
Wow.
So that was wonderful. And that started the Monday after we closed at the Adelphi on the Saturday with Clive Harray, Jeff Shovelton, Jill Pert,
Right.
all sorts of people. And the other note was from the Gilbert and Sullivan Society of Houston in Texas.
Right.
Would I go out and guest as the judge in trial by jury in a double bill with Pinafore for their 30th anniversary?
Oh.
That took a nanosecond to decide, and I took both jobs.
Right.
And the one in Houston is effectively where my directing career grew from. Because after playing the learned judge, I thought that's just a one-off. They asked me back the next year to play Jack Point, which I did. And then the next year said, well, you come and play Coco. And in the last week of rehearsals, the then director had to be out of town. And I was asked by the chairman of the board to stage the Act 2 finale of Mikado.
Oh.
And I now realise that was my audition to direct.
Right.
Because I did this huge circular thing where we're all running around in circles, eventually leaving just the Mikado on stage. And I really believe that now was my audition. And since then I directed and performed with them. And eventually it was for 40 years.
Wow.
And I retired in 2022 with HMS Pinafore.
Yeah, I remember seeing that all advertised on Facebook.
Yes, and on YouTube there is a wonderful video of, well, it actually looks like it's a eulogy to me at my funeral. But some lovely things were said. Yeah.
Yes.
And of course another lovely link there, because we had the D'Oyly Carte, Mikado and Iolanthe sets, particularly because of Iolanthe, Ken Robertson had actually lit a production in the Buxton Festival when Houston brought Yeoman across. And because they hadn't got a designer for the next year for Iolanthe, they booked him to direct, stage manage, and do the lighting design for Iolanthe. So we worked together for years in Houston.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. I was in the audience at Harrogate for Roberta's most recent and, unfortunately, maybe the last of the reunion concerts. It was wonderful to see so many former Carte members back together again. This must have been quite enjoyable, but also quite sad.
Correct on both counts.
Yes.
Lovely to see everybody. Looking at people thinking, I remember you. Who the hell are you? Because some of them I've not seen for years. But some of you remember it in the minute they speak. I mean, Peter Riley, you would never miss Peter.
No.
And bless her, Jean Hindmarsh came on just as a guest toward the end. And I bless her, she's such a wonderful lady. I sat with her in the stalls during the rehearsal when I wasn't needed, because I just did 2 numbers, and chatted for well over half an hour. She's an absolute sweetheart. In a Buxton festival years ago, we did a trial by jury, and it was done like a last night thing where everybody played the role dressed differently.
Right.
So I was playing the learned judge as Coco. Ken Sandwood was the learned counsel as Shadbolt. John Aildon was the usher as Dick Deadeye. And when it came to the entrance of the bridesmaids, they extended the music massively, and they brought on former members of the company. And they brought one lady on, dressed as Princess Ida, with 2 handmaids, because we had the Barretts of Bath costumes, and Mary Sansom's costume for Ida was an identical one to the Carte version. And John Aildon looked round at the lady who came as Ida and said, I remember you. You used to be Jean Hindmarsh. And the audience went nuts because they didn't recognise her. It'd been so long. And she was totally taken aback by it. But a couple of years later, they persuaded her to come into a festival production of Ida that I was directing with a whole load of very talented amateurs. And she played Ida. And she was sweetness and light. She couldn't have been more supportive and helpful to all these young performers. Not the grande dame coming in. Just think, where would you like me to stand? What would you like me to do? And I've just recently seen a posting by Vera Ryan on Facebook of Jean singing Sorry Her Lot from Pinafore. Oh my God.
Yes.
But then talking about sopranos, I think I said earlier, I first saw the Mikado at the Granada in Shrewsbury with Valerie Masterson as Yum Yum. She had only just taken the roles over. In the last season at the Adelphi, Valerie came in to guest as Mabel. Oh. You cannot imagine how I felt having watched this goddess as a teenager to now have her kneeling at my feet singing, Dear Father, why leave your bed? Oh. Although I never got the chance to work with Gillian Knight in D'Oyly Carte, I worked with her on a Meadmore production tour in America, and to try and perform Coco against her Katisha, she's absolutely terrifying. I mean, the lady is built like a stick insect.
Yes.
But when she folds her arms as Katisha, she's like Jessie Norman. I mean, a force to be reckoned with. Lovely silly story again about how gracious Gillian is. We'd finished the full production tour with the Meadmores, and the principals with the Meadmores had all been booked to front a university production of Mikado. So all the chorus flew home, and we principals flew down to wherever the university was. And we walked into the back of the auditorium, and it's a great sort of tiered auditorium, and sat down as the chorus were starting to sing the Act 1 finale. And conductor said, "Oh, Miss Knight, would you just come down and sing Katisha for them?" And of course Gillian gave it everything she had. And we're sitting in the stalls afterwards with the chorus, and one young lady said to her, "Miss Knight, you really ought to be careful. Don't sing out so much, you're going to hurt your voice." And she said, "Oh, thank you so much for caring for it, but that's the way I sing it. I just have to go with it. Not the, don't be so stupid, girl. No. You know, I'm a trained opera singer." Just gently thanked her. That's a measure of the woman, yes. And of Valerie and of Gillian.
Lovely, yeah.
Oh, sorry, and of Jean. Well, Ken's another one in point. When I first had to go on as an understudy, it's accepted that the understudy dresses in the same room where his or her principal, should have dressed. So invariably, it's Ken and James. First few times I couldn't do it. I couldn't go and dress in the room with this man I treated again as a god, until we got, I think it was to one theatre where the dressing room for the chorus was 5 floors up, and I thought, I can't do this. Now, I think it was a Mikado, up and down like a fiddler's elbow. So I said, no, put my costumes in with Ken. Within 30 seconds of being in there, we were bosom friends. Yeah. Helpful, supportive. He would never give you advice unless you asked. It wasn't pushy at all. He never gave you advice on makeup, but of course he was the master of makeup, being an oil painter. And if you would say to him, "Can you help? I'm not quite sure how to get this bit for the makeup. Just try that." And he said, he got a piece of material. In fact, I think it was the curtains in the dressing room, and he held them up like a swag, and he said, "Just look at that in the folds. There's a highlight and there's a shadow, and unless you do the shadow with the highlight, it doesn't read." And I said, nice one, Ken. Yeah. So again, helps you through. In fact, all of them did.
No, he was a very accomplished painter, wasn't he?
Yeah, okay.
When I went to see Peggy Ann Jones last year, above where Peggy was sitting, there was an oil painting that Ken had done of the two of them as Despard and Margaret in Act 2. It was a lovely painting.
But again, imagine how I felt about Ken. I'm used to seeing him on stage as a star, and then what blew me down, he only retired and moved to Market Drayton. So I'm now bumping into this G&S god in Morrison's with his shopping trolley. You think, weird world.
Yes. And if what I've been told is correct, you also took on a bit of a political career.
Oh, heavens, yes. Again, that's to do with theatre. This is going back to local government reorganisation in North Shropshire, where Market Drayton Urban District Council was going to be swallowed up in a new unitary authority for North Shropshire. Right. And all the then councillors were throwing money at their pet schemes. And we all wanted some sort of performance venue in Market Drayton, because we couldn't keep using the school. Yep. So loads of us in the Operatic Society stood as independents in the real meaning of the word, not independent secret Tory. No. And we all got elected. And so we're running the council. There were 2 of the older councillors there, and the first year was great. And in the second year there was another election, and the mayor-elect failed to be re-elected. Oh. And so the all-round says, "Well, you're a solicitor, you can be chairman." So I was elected mayor, which was quite comic, because there's a photograph of me somewhere from the North Shropshire Sentinel, North Staff's Sentinel, of me in a dressing room in the Potteries with Laloum and Marcina from the opera Kismet. And I'm in a suit, wearing the mayoral chain and the makeup for Harge, because I got the lead. And they're all doing, "What is the mayor of Market Drayton doing in Baghdad?" But, you know, it was fun. But you do these things. Yes. But then, of course, all that leads on from the fact that, having realised when the cart closed that people like Bruce Graham will have a career as a singer, like he did in Me and My Girl and Cats, I just sing fast and loud. So I thought, maybe try directing. So I formed my own society in Market Drayton on the basis if I can direct people I've grown up with, then I can do it everywhere else. And I did it all over the place. And as I said, the Houston one set it really down. But I direct all over the country. It's lovely. I even did Penzance operatics, Pirates of Penzance, at the Minack outdoors. Now that's an accomplishment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So finally, what would you say was your main memory that you could take away from your time with the cart?
Oh, now you're asking. Friendship.
Right.
Fun. Hard work.
Oh, yeah.
Schlepping around the country in your car thinking, why can't they get the second date nearer the first date? Like the first weeks, it was South Sea, and then on your day off, drive to Sunderland. And that's before the motorways were as good as they were. Touring around Scotland and getting the chance to see Aberdeen and Inverness and Stirling at somebody else's expense.
Yes.
I mean, the Eden Court Theatre in Inverness, next to the river. I've never seen a river flow so fast, and that's when it's in normal flood. It's beautiful, and some fabulous theatres. I mean, the Theatre Royal Nottingham, I'm not sure if you've been, but they did a fabulous renovation on it. They kept the auditorium exactly as it was, with all this fabulous Matcham sculpture and gilding, and the proscenium, and demolished everything behind it. So backstage is a brand new modern theatre, all the equipment, air conditioning, everything. Raise the curtain and you're back in Victorian England. It's beautiful, perfect for GNS.
Yes.
It's like the Buxton Opera House. The theatres where you can lean out and shake hands with the guy in the dress circle box are perfect for GNS. The big ones like, where was I just said? Not the Opera House, the Winter Gardens in Blackpool. It's like singing down a coffin. But you still have to do it, and you just increase the size of your reaction.
Yes.
But fun. Again, there was the occasional falling out with the company, like every family. There's an odd thing. You never mention money in the theatre, because that is bound to cause a disagreement. If I can explain, if you're a chorister, you're given a particular pay rate, and all the choristers are the same. If you have an understudy, you're given a fee per understudy to know the role, to be able to step on. So if, for argument's sake, like myself, you had an understudy in every one of the operas, you would add a lot of money. I think there was only myself and Jill Pert who covered a part in every opera. Like the tenors, there's always two tenors, so each understudy only had half the operas. And then if you go on to perform, you get a performance fee.
Right.
It transpires that when James was off sick, you accumulate all my pay rates, and I was the second highest paid performer in the company behind Ken Sanford. Wow. Somehow, and I don't know how, word got out.
Oh. It always does, doesn't it?
And somebody who will remain nameless went to Mike Mackenzie, the then Tory manager, and said, "He's earning more than my wife, the contralto. Change the contract." And Mike said, "Of course I will. I'll have to change yours as well." And that backed up. It's money that can be the problem.
Yeah.
But other than that, got on with everybody.
Yeah. Have you kept in touch with many of your former colleagues?
A lot more through Facebook now. I never used to do Facebook because there are too many nasty people out there. But I realised I was losing touch with people and only discovered after the event that they'd died. So I go on now. I don't do anything about music, really. It's photographs of my garden, which is what I live for now.
And looking out, it looks really nice. Yes.
We're developing a D'Oyly Carte gardening club, because I've discovered that Sandra Dugdale, Lorraine Daniels, Alison Charleston West, and Guy Matthews are all keen gardeners. So whenever we post anything, they're all commenting back and forth. And it's saying, well, I've got this particular rose. Like a couple of weeks ago, Alison put up a photograph of a climbing rose called Paul Himalayan Musk, which I have a huge on it. So I counted it with one of mine. Anything you can do, I could do better. And then asking advice as well. But, it's lovely to see them, because unfortunately, the only time we get together is at funerals.
Yes.
Like, I know tomorrow you're going to interview Joy Ellison.
Yes.
The last time I saw Joy was at Ellie's funeral in Whitchurch. And bless her, Joy has got more character than I could ever have. She gave the eulogy for John at the funeral. I couldn't do that for my husband.
No, I certainly couldn't.
Yeah,
for
and
Jane.
recently I met up again with David Stedman, who you all know, and David Walton, chair of the D'Oyly Carte Trustees, at Mike Buchan's funeral. The previous one to that was Trish Leonard's funeral, John Ailden's funeral. I keep saying we have to organise a get-together while we're all still alive.
Yes.
Because you can't really make merry at the bun fight afterwards.
No.
Although at Joy's, she did have all of us sing Hail Poetry for her in the pub
lovely.
afterwards. Again, another lovely lady. I think I told you earlier, I was offered the second cover to James and the company promptly went to Australia. John didn't go because he'd just done a tour of America and thought, no, I can't be doing with this.
No.
So while they were away, I knew that he hadn't gone, and I knew that he lived in Whitchurch, which is not far from where I live. And I rang up thinking I'll have a quick chat with him on the phone about what to do in the D'Oyly Carte. Oh, no, come over tomorrow. 4 hours. Tea and cakes, chatted to them all about what to do, what not to do, who to trust, who to be wary of, everything, including gardening advice.
Oh, wow.
Because at one point, they were experts and featured on Gardener's World on growing African violets.
Oh.
I believe they had set up their loft with all the extra lighting and heating to breed them.
You sure it wasn't cannabis?
I don't think so, and I daren't say that because Joy will correct me. But the other lovely thing was, the first day I performed in Southsea in the Mikado, there in my pigeonhole was a good luck card from Ellie.
Oh, lovely.
Absolute sweetheart of a man.
I always loved his Old Adam
Yes.
with the line, it was like 8 hours at the seaside.
Yeah.
I always lived for that particular line.
Yeah. Now again, after the D'Oyly Carte closed, Christine George, one of our lovely choristers I was very friendly with, organised with the regional arts councils music therapy in hospitals and long-stay institutions,
Right.
which rather naughtily we refer to as bedpan tours. But there was Chris George, Roberta, not Kenton, but John Ellison, Jeff Cresswell, as was, and me, and a local pianist who I knew, Audrey. And then on one occasion, Ellie wasn't available, and Ken did it with us, Ken Sanford.
Right.
And this was actually in Whitchurch. And he was introduced to the audience as the newcomer. I thought, if only you knew. But there's one lovely occasion, we were in a hospital somewhere, and we're all at floor level, and it's older people with Alzheimer's, and it's amazing how music therapy brings out things, and they were moving and responding, and Ellie was singing something, and one old lady wandered up and put her arms round him and hugged him for the entire solo. He just kept singing on, bless him.
Lovely.
And on another occasion, one of the members of the audience wandered along and sat down on the keyboard next to the pianist and just looked at her all the way through it. It's beautiful, but you could feel them, the music. I mean, another one. We're doing rejection. I mean, Jeff Cresswell, bless him, is a lovely, lovely tenor with a lovely manner, and we're playing in a very old person's home somewhere, and there's an old lady on the front row with a beautiful shock of white hair. Her arms were as thin as my little finger practically, and she's so frail. She's in a wheelchair with her head put forward and her hands on a pillow on her lap, and Jeff was singing Sparkling Eyes. And for the second verse on the intro, he moved down to us, he knelt down, he slid one hand under her hand, put his other hand on top, and started singing. And she responded. And that's the first response the nurses has seen for a couple of years. It's just music. We don't know which bow she was remembering from 90 years ago.
No.
But it was a fond memory.
Yes. So with live performances, things often go wrong, either on the professional or the amateur stage. Could you share a few of those with us?
Oh, heavens, you have no idea. The audience always think it's sweetness and light, but every performance is like a swan. Grace at the top and the legs are going berserk underneath.
Definitely.
But, I mean, I don't know these sort. I know most of these from Jeff Shovelton when we were doing concert tours in America. For instance, this thing about the D'Oyly Carte, because they were touring, had to have everything made really strongly built, sets and costumes particularly. So in Pirates, for instance, you see these fabulous crinolines that the girls wear. It's not just the crinoline, you see. You've got the decorative layer on the top, then a petticoat, then the hoops, and then the bloomers. And they're all, the sort that Victoria has in boxes that
Yes.
any pub named the Queen Victoria. And it's alleged that during climbing over Rocky Mountain one night, one of the ladies realised what Jeff describes as an ominous slackening of tension and realised she was going to lose her bloomers. So remember, at this point she's singing and dancing around the stage, and she's now thinking, what the heck am I going to do? And she works out, now at the very end, we step to the side and we curtsy. So what I will do is I will step to the side, I will step out of my bloomers, pick them up and throw them into the wings. Good wheeze? No. Instead of going into the wings, they filled with air like one of Richard Branson's balloons and sailed across the stage, sitting on the rocks for the rest of Act 1. There's also a story about pirates which affects John Reed when he was in the chorus in America, where they had a very lightweight set made of polystyrene blocks for the chapel.
Right.
And pirates are all hiding behind the chapel blocks, and the police are doing their number in the front, and somebody moved at the back, and one of the pillars of polystyrene blocks collapsed, and this block of apparent granite, sort of 6-foot cube, bounced off John Reed's head. Amateurs aren't devoid of things going wrong. I think I told you I directed Penzance operatics in Pirates at the Minack. Well, one year we were actually staging the gondoliers, and we had an interesting situation in that, shall we say, the scenic company was not of the first quality,
Right.
so the set was a bit rickety. So we have a gondola, which obviously can't be on water, so it's on 4 wheels, pulled across the stage by the stage crew on the opposite side. Unfortunately, this gondola has one of those wheels you get on a shopping trolley at Sainsbury's. So instead of gliding, it bounced across the stage. So in the gondola was the Duke of Plather Toro, who was about the size of Ronnie Corbett, the Duchess, who was the size of Jessie Norman, Louise and Casilda, and Louise was carrying 3 picnic stools, 2 suitcases and a hamper, a la the D'Oyly Carte version, and the gondolier, and they're punting across and bouncing. They stop at the landing, and the Duke steps onto the landing. The Duchess goes to step onto the landing. Instead of standing on the landing, she stands on the edge of the gondola, which snapped under her weight. And she fell backwards into the gondola, so all that's visible is her 2 legs sticking up from under her underwear. The Duke turns round to help, and you can see him think, nope, I've got to sing. So he heads downstairs singing From the Sunny Spanish Shore, the Duke of Plather Tore, and from underneath all this underwear and laundry comes, and his grace is Duchess true. Louis and Casilda, remembering he's got all this crap he's carrying, prize the Duchess out the gondola, but instead of sitting down at the stools that Louis has now set out, she follows him round the stage, and whenever within range she either hits him or kicks him or thrashes him with her parasol. Eventually they leave, leaving Louis and Casilda to rush into each other's arms singing, "Oh Rapture!" At which point there's an explosion in the orchestra pit, and the lights all go out in the orchestra pit. The cellist has taken this moment to move her instrument and stick the metal spike that's at the bottom in a lighting socket. Fortunately, she's on that rubber mat that they always have to stop the spike sliding, so she's earthed. So there isn't the smell of burning cellist coming up. I'm sitting in the audience, which is why I hate doing it, dying quietly. For this awful production, they won the NODA Southwest Regional Award of Excellence, so there is a God and she loves me.
Well done.
Another one, which involves my lovely friend Roberta Morell, she was directing a production of The Sorcerer at the Buxton Opera House. I was John Wellington Wells. We had Jeff Shovelton, and I forget who was playing Aline, but there's 2 of them anyway, and we're doing the incantation scene. I'm at the back of the stage at the dress rehearsal, and Roberta's got a bit of dry ice going around, and she wasn't happy with the effect. So apparently she gave the instruction to the stage crew for the evening performance, waft it. So as the scene starts, the dry ice starts to build, and the stage crew in the wings with sheets of cardboard wafting the smoke. to the extent that by the time I started to sing Sprites of Earth and Air, the entire stage was full of fog. All the audience could see were flashing coloured lights and hear my disembodied voice somewhere in the mists of time.
And all the audience go...
Yes, dreadful. But previously, we'd staged it in Philadelphia on a leg of the festival. Again, Roberta's production. This is not her fault, I hasten to add, or Ken Robertson, the stage manager's fault. But the Americans, although they could put a man on the moon, their idea of pyrotechnics is a tad basic. Instead of purpose-built cartridges in a purpose-built box, they made them up with a bit of fuse wire, a cigarette paper and a handful of gunpowder, a totally indeterminate amount. Mm-hmm. So this time I am singing the incantation, and Alina and Alexis are downstage left, and I get to number 1, and there's an almighty explosion downstage left, like New Hiroshima. So Alina and Alexis sprint across the stage to the other side. Number 2, another massive explosion, and the stage prop rose standard bush bursts into flames next to them. Number 3, and there's now fire under the table behind me. So Ken, bless him, stops the rehearsal. I'm not quite sure why, but very apologetic stage, it won't happen tonight. So we get to the evening, I'm thinking, oh, here we go. I turn away from where I'm pointing number 1, and the noise isn't an explosion, it's what can best be described as a wet fart. Ditto number 2, ditto number 3. That's bad enough, but when we get to the big scene afterwards, where Aline and of course they're accompanied by masses of smoke from these noises, we get to the Aline Alexis duet, "Oh Love, True Love," and all the smoke detectors in the theatre burst into life. So the two of them were bellowing, "Oh, hear us! Oh, hear us!" I'm not sure where Roberta and Ken were at this point, but they couldn't have been happy.
So, interesting things that have gone wrong.
Oh, heavens, yes.
Thank you so much for the hospitality and agreeing to chat to me today. Thank you.